Welcome back. At this point, you have listened to a story of learning that I shared, a read aloud about learning, and been asked to think about yourself as a learner. As you responded in your journal, did you think more about what happens as we learn? What were the commonalities between Jeremiah learning to read, my learning to play golf, and your own learning activity? What usually happens when successful teaching and learning takes place is what I referred to before as a gradual release of responsibility. This is a term coined by M.C. Gallagher and P. David Pearson back in the early 80s. That is exactly what happened in the golfing lesson I described to you. With each step from the initial assessment to the teacher's demonstration of how to hold the club, to my hitting it on my own and the steps in between, there was a shift in responsibility to me to try it on my own, all the while supporting and encouraging. In recent years in education, we have really emphasized the idea of modeling in our instruction. This is a concept that has actually been around for many, many years, but has also seemed to catch our attention as though it were something new. I now hear many teachers say, I modeled it, but they just don't get it. Modeling is only one aspect of the teaching and learning process, really just the introduction that shows children where we are going. But there is much more to this process than just modeling. You will be seeing a wonderful classroom example later in this section and many examples throughout the module. For now, let's think about another example. Did you learn to ride a bike as a child? That's an experience that most of us have had, and for many of us there's a lot in common within that experience. So it should be an easy one to use as an example. The cartoon pictured on your screen has been a favorite of mine for a long time. In this cartoon, you first see the little girl on her bike asking Daddy for some help. Daddy, I tried and tried, but I can't do it. She has the motivation, and we can assume she has seen others ride a bike. So she had those models and demonstrations. Daddy offers to help her. Here, honey, let me give you a hand. And like so many of us remember learning to ride a bike, they take off together. Daddy supports her till she gets her balance by holding on to the back of the seat. He says, I'll hold on tight and you pedal. She looks a little worried, but he offers reassurance, saying, it's okay, I've got you. When he feels like she's got it, he lets go and she's off on her own. At first scared to death, but then suddenly realizing that she's doing it on her own. She says, Daddy, I did it. I rode a two-wheel bike all by myself. And you know what? It was easy. And then we see Dad thinking, the hard part is letting go. When I first began sharing this cartoon with teachers, I could hardly read it without tearing up, as my own children were leaving for college at that time. And that line of the hard part is letting go really hit home. But we as teachers also experience that, almost unconsciously. As I was sharing this cartoon, did you think back to your own early experiences with a bike? I always remember my dad holding not only the back of the bike as we saw in the cartoon, but also the handlebars. First he let go of the handlebars and then gradually let go of the seat also, gradually being the key word. Also, notice the dad didn't let go and walk in the house. He stayed in case she fell, and the whole process needed to start all over. We talk a lot these days about children being independent and that our goal for them is to be independent learners and thinkers. And yet, in many of our classrooms, children are given few opportunities to make decisions and problem solve. A good bit of the day and how it works is generally decided for them. We miss the idea of a gradual release of responsibility, often either not releasing it at all or doing some modeling and then expecting our students to go from modeling to independent practice without those gradual steps of support in between that help us to assess their understanding and determine what kind of support is needed. Traditionally, we often just got children's attention, explained what we wanted them to do, and then sent them off to do it. We called that teaching and learning, but actually it was just an explanation to produce a specified product, to receive a grade. Very different than teaching and learning that we're talking about. Just as we see in the For Better or Worse cartoon, and in our thinking about things we have learned ourselves, there is this gradual release of responsibility. First of all, something catches our attention and makes us interested in learning. That's the engagement or motivation. Then there's generally a more knowledgeable other who can model and demonstrate the expected learning for us. Once we've had that demonstration, there should be support as we try it on our own. That's the guided practice. And then we actually do it on our own and sometimes even perform for or show others what we've learned. That's the independent practice and application. Each of these steps overlaps and moves forward and backward as needed. In our classrooms, it might look like this. You'll find this page in your handouts. In this learning circle, what you'll see is, first of all, engagement or connections. Something happens that makes us want to learn. Then we get involved in the learning and there are models and demonstrations. This is once we're actually engaged in the process. We then have guided or supported practice that allows learners to try something out with teacher support and guidance. And finally, independent practice and application of the new learning. The circle diagram found in your printable documents is based on the early 70s work of Don Holdaway, as described in his book, Foundations of Literacy. It's what he calls a natural learning model. In the scholastic book, Improving Comprehension with Think-Alouds, the author, Jeff Wilhelm, gives us another way of looking at this. He explains it this way. Demonstrations are, I do, you watch. Guided practice is, I do, you help. Independent practice is, you do, I help. And applications are, you do, I watch. That makes it easy and makes sense, doesn't it? You might want to go back and listen to that one more time. It is easy to see this is not the approach of show them how to do it, now go do it on your own. Take a moment now to do the Think and Learn activity that is next in your learning menu. This activity will help you think about the purpose of different aspects of instruction that may already be presented in your... Back up.
Let's back up.
It's easy to see this is not the approach of show them how to do it, now go do it on your own. Take a moment now to do the Think and Learn activity that is next on your learning menu. This activity will help you think about the purpose of different aspects of instruction that may already be present in your day, or why possibly it would be important for these aspects to be present. You might think about this in terms of a balanced literacy or comprehensive literacy model, including think-alouds, shared reading, guided reading, independent reading, and matching components for writing. Or you might think about it in terms of readers and writers workshop. Both models definitely are built around a foundation of gradual release. If neither of these models reflects your current classroom practice, then consider whether your own model of instruction does reflect a teaching and learning model of gradual release.